Good morning. Can you hear me? Thank you all for coming. And on behalf of the Men's Fellowship, my name is Jack Miyamoto. You can't hear me?
No, put it close to your mouth.
Hello.
Yeah.
Take two. Hello. On behalf of the Men's Fellowship, pleasure to have you with us today. And just so you know, I'm not the rabbi from Japan, but I am here. And so I'd like to welcome all of you on behalf of the Men's Fellowship. And I'd like to introduce Pastor Ed, who will introduce our honored lecture guest today.
Jack, thank you so much. And thank all of you for making time to be here today. Larry is an old-time friend. And we went to chaplain school together in 1989 at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. And we've known each other off and on since that time, more so when he became the state chaplain for the National Guard in Massachusetts, and when I became the state chaplain for the National Guard in Delaware. We had a lot more conversations that took place. Larry is a combat veteran vet. He deployed to Afghanistan. Then he followed me in the Joint Staff at the National Guard Bureau, did some more travel. And I would say one thing that Larry, I hope you touch upon this maybe either today or tomorrow, but Larry was the chaplain in charge of the marathon bombings in Boston. And he was there for that, and he probably has a lot of stories to tell.
Yes.
But join me in welcoming my friend, Rabbi Larry Bazer.
Thank you. I'm good. So it has been a pleasure to be here with your community. One of the first things when Pastor Ed asked me to come down to visit, I said I have at least one major requirement. It has to be warmer than Boston, Massachusetts. Thank you, folks. So it's been really wonderful. So I'm gonna say this. You'll see why I'm doing it. I'm excited about this topic, God's playground, what's going on in Israel today. I'm going to do my disclaimer saying this is my own representation of what's going on. It does not reflect the United Church of Marco Island or the conservative movement or Israel, because it's so crazy. Now, both Pastor Ed and I probably had to do this when we were in uniform and had to speak at events. We would say, these are my own thoughts and do not represent the department, right? Yes? So, partly because I would say more than so many others, separate from religion, dealing with politics, Israel politics, what's going on, becomes personal. We each have our own view. And I'll share with you what my view is going on. I'm going to encourage you to ask me challenging questions. And if I don't have the answer or it's too challenging, I'll tell you that. But I'll also say for now, and I'll say this again tomorrow for my final presentation, there's only one bad question you could ask me. And that's the question you don't ask. So ask me the questions. If it's really, really hard or controversial, I know who I'm turning to do it. So, today's topic, God's playground, the land, the people, and the politics of modern Israel. So this title seems so appropriate for the land, for where this region is. The title actually comes from a book, and I can't remember, but Mike, it comes from, who's the author of the actual book?
Norman Davies.
It was God's Playground. It was the history of Poland. Because Poland, what's fascinating about Poland is stuck between the Russian Empire and then the German-Prussian army and everyone else. And it seemed to be everyone was going back and forth across the land of Poland. He came up with the book God's Playground. I remember reading a review of it, and it just stuck with me. Well, wait a minute. The real God's Playground is what we're going to talk about today. So, you can see. So, and each people, let me first ask any of you, who here has been to Israel? Fantastic. Who here wants to go to Israel? You got a trip in the working. We'll talk.
I know who to call, Larry.
I've been blessed I think I was just there in November. I think I've been to Israel, it's either 19 or 20 times now. My first time was right after college. And then before I even thought about becoming a rabbi, and never thought I would get back or when would I get back. I've had a chance to live there for a total of 3 years, which I'll share different things. I have family and dear friends that live in Israel. that I've shared with, and I'll share a couple of the things that really came out, not on this visit, but a previous one. So let's take a walk into God's playground. So, where do you start? Well, I could start in 1948, the founding of the present state of Israel, but in a way, both Judaism and Christianity, and a big part of Islam, all has its roots starting with the 12th chapter of the book of Genesis, with the statement, God to Abraham, Avram, he didn't have his name changed yet, go forth from your native land, which is probably up around Syria, Lebanon-ish, from your father's house to the land I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and curse him that curses you, and all the families of the earth shall be blessed by you. And from that point, Abraham takes the leap of faith, very important in both our traditions, and heads out with his family. I have no idea what he said to Sarai. Hey, we're going to be moving. Gather up everything. Where are we going? Florida? Sounds good. A land that God will show us. Florida. So you head out, and the land is, go walk the land from the north to the south to the east to the west. See it all. Experience it. This will be the land that I promise you and all your descendants. Notice the word descendants, because at that point, what was very clear, Avram married Sarai before Sarah, and the text right before in chapter 11 states, and she was barren. Powerful statement, because in this land, everything changes. So, we head out, we see the land. By the way, when I've taken a trip to, I led 3 congregational trips to Israel, and 2 of them I decided the way we're going to start, as soon as we get off the plane, we end up in Tel Aviv. It's night, people are tired, it's a long flight, and before they even check into the hotel, if you're in Tel Aviv, most of the good hotels are all on the beach. We would go out to the beach, stand, and I would have them look out to the Mediterranean water and say, we came from over there. That was Massachusetts. And I would have them, and I said, turn around and look out. Just as Abraham, from the north to the south, east to west, we're going to explore. And this is our journey that we're about to do. I hope you'll be able to experience that too, because that's really the way to start off. I will also put one other part. Going to Israel, especially if you're a person of faith and connected to religion, is not like going to France or England. It's really nice, beautiful. Go to visit, other parts of the country. That you could say it's vacation, a tourist. You go to Israel for Jews, and I'm going to say for Christians because of the birth of Jesus for there, it's going home. It's a different experience. And I hope you have that. So, all right. So let's talk about it just a little bit, prehistory. So the top one is probably where Avram, with his father and the family, they came from. Ur of the Chaldees, we read. And you can see the path that goes through here up to Aleppo. We think that's probably where we're in. Haran, we know that he was there. And then he's commanded to go in, and you can see his path into the land. The lower one, I think, do I have a, whoops, nope. There it is now, fast forward, is the Exodus. Just so you know, how did the Jewish people, Israelites, end up in Israel? Well, Jacob had how many sons? And I always like to quiz people. And one daughter, Dinah. Very good. Gold star. The 12 sons become 12 tribes. They multiply. They end up in Egypt because there was a famine. First things were great. And then this very powerful line, verse 6 in Exodus. And there rose a Pharaoh who knew not of Joseph. And from there, they become enslaved. God hears their cry, chooses Moses to be God's messenger to lead them out. Moses probably still would say, why did I do this? And then you can see the second path is that they go through the wilderness to finally then come in and conquer the land. Moses never makes it, remember? He dies on Mount Nebo. Were you ever in Nebo? Okay, on the Jordan side. I remember I've been there twice, and when Jews pray, we always face toward Jerusalem. So everyone in the United States would be facing east. I remember being there and very distinctly praying west. And to be able to see it from where traditionally we think Mount Nebo is. And so we go through, it took them 40 years. And want to know why it took 40 years? Very simply, Moses and company did not ask their spouses for directions. No GPS. Actually, I'll say, it's not because of the sin of the golden calf. It was from the sin of the spies. The spies, when they were finally about to go in, they send in scouts, good mission, comes back, hey, it's a great land, but there's giants in that land. Joshua and Caleb said, no, we could take them because we got God behind us. People didn't listen, and they were forced at that point to wander for 40 years. Why 40 years? Anybody know?
Yes, till everyone died off.
That's how you get a new generation. A new generation that did not know the slave pits of Egypt. And they go in. So, that's how we end up in this land. Joshua conquers it. We're there. So, here's actually something interesting. All the names of the land of Israel. So we say Israel now. Where does that name come from? Remember? I like to quiz people. Jacob. Because?
God renamed him. He wrestled with God and named him Israel.
And named him Israel. One who struggles with God. El. Yisrael. To struggle with El, which means God. So we struggle. Here are all the names. Canaan. That was what it was called beforehand. Canaanites. Land of the Hebrews, promised land. It's one of my favorite. A land flowing with milk and honey. Now my question. What was the milk and what was the honey? You're white. Wait a minute. Milk and honey.
2% fat.
Ready? The milk was not cow's milk. It's goat milk, most likely, or sheep milk. Okay, because that's what they had. It was domesticated. Now, what was the honey? And it was not bees. No. Date honey. One of the things that's really great, it produces a very thick, slurry liquid. It was most likely date honey, milk of landed honey, which was a way to feed you. It was full of energy, so you could see that. Eretz Yisrael means the land of Israel. I'm going to come back to that term. Haaretz, the land. A lot of Jews will say, oh, it's Haaretz, the land. Any other place is some land, the land, because of our things. Later on, the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah. At one point they were united and then they were split. There was a civil war. Samaria would be the northern kingdoms, the northern tribes. You could see, and there's different time periods. Zion, which comes in later, refers to Jerusalem, maybe, and then specifically the Temple Mount area. So it sort of broadens, but we say Zion, which when you hear terms like, are you a Zionist? Those who are anti-Zionists. So you can see where now wordplay is coming in. Once we lost the land, Palestine, which was part of one region that was imposed back on the land by the Romans and later on to basically, put down any sort of Jewish rebellion. This isn't your land anymore. We're going to rename the land. The mandate, Palestine, that goes on later on, really from the Turks then into the British, with the British mandate, and then finally back to Israel again as a modern state, 1948. And sometimes in academic terms, you'll hear Levant. Many times in the military terms and stuff like that, they'll refer to the whole region, this whole region, as the Levant, is one of the terms. So what's in a name? And today, with all the politics, you can see names really have great meaning. So let's look at exactly what we're talking about in land compared to everyone else. It's not that big. Some say it's like the size of New Jersey, with maybe a little bit of Delaware thrown in.
There's a little added.
It's not that big. You could literally go from the top to the bottom now with there's actually good highways, in probably 4 or 5 hours. That's it. I should ask, once you hit the Florida border to come here, how long is it driving? 6 hours. So if you put Israel in there, you've already you've already gone from the northern snow to good beaches in less time. But look what's around it. Jordan. By the way, Jordan, without a question, Hasmonean Kingdom, totally was configured by the Brits. A lot of the problems in the region, really, I'll be honest, go back to the British mandate, because they just decided to draw lines in wherever they thought would be the regions. Hence all the challenges. The famous story of Lawrence of Arabia, one of my favorite movies of all time, was about figuring out the lands and the sheiks and all these little nomads to create them. But you could see Sinai area, Saudi Arabia, how close it is. Egypt, there was a point, if you go to the north, to northern Israel, see if I get this right around up here, which is the Golan Heights. There's a point where you could stand, and in one spot, you look over here, you could see southern Lebanon, then you could see Syria, and then you could see Jordan from one spot in Israel. It's that close. There's not much there. And here we do markation, the West Bank area. What's in a name? So most of the time I would say, we would say the West Bank area. But if you're getting someone who's more, let's say, on the right of center in Israel, they're only calling it Shomron, or parts Judah, Yehudah. They're going back to those sort of biblical names and regions because it's a political statement. Here's another part to sort of put in the places. And the land was much smaller in 48 when the first got out. So there's Gaza, the Golan Heights, still whatever. But here's the key. Jerusalem, Bethlehem, birth of Jesus place. Literally, you can go from one of the streets in Jerusalem, and with probably about probably about an hour and a half, you could walk to Beit Lechem. Bethlehem, full name is Beit Lechem, house of bread. Lechem is bread. Tel Aviv is over here. You can see in a way, the West Bank area. There's Jericho. And how much space where it is into Gaza. Here's Beersheba, and great beaches down here in Eilat and along the coast. It's not that big, my friends. What about if we jump back, 12 tribes? Judah was one of the largest sections. That's where the house of David comes from. Judah is important because I think someone else comes from the house of David, traditionally, according to New Testament. Anybody know who that person could be? But you could see then where the family tribe is. Ephraim up here. Benjamin was sort of tucked in. And then all the various other tribes that are noted. Some of Manasseh, part of it, Gad and Reuven, parts of Reuven, wanted to settle. There was a whole agreement. They had to strike a deal. Hey, we really like the land over here. We don't know if we want to go into this new part called the land of Canaan that's going to be our land. hey, and the answer was, you fight for us, we'll let you go back and stay on the other side if you like it. So that's why these tribes are over here. That's biblically. Time of Jesus. So really, really the big part is Judea, parts of Samaria, the Galilee region. So if I have it, where's my Jerusalem? Right over here. So here's Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Hebron. Wasn't really there, but when he goes up to the Galilee area, you could see where that region. Can you walk it? Absolutely. Take you 3, 4, 5 days, depending on how good your donkey is, or how fast you're going to walk, or when the kids are yelling at you. So, but you could see this region, and when you go back at times to look at your Bible, when you read your New Testament, to start putting those places. I want to plant another seed. Please, God, you go to Israel. And mark my words on this for all of you. If you went up and you went to a place, you got to remind me, Pastor Ed, where it is, where the fish and the loaves took place? Okay, up the Galilee. Do you remember where town? Offhand? Okay, you're standing there. I promise you, you should bring your Bibles. I'm sure you will. You open up and you read that passage and you look out. You will never, ever, ever read that passage again the same way, because now you'll get it in a sense. It will be experiential, not just reading it. That's what I hope for you too. Okay, so throughout history, God's playground, people are going to want it. It's fertile. There's good hills for grazing your sheep and your cat and your goats, for mining and land. It's a rich area, which means that everyone wants it. And if we go back to playground and you saw from the other stuff, there were major empires all around it. Way to the east, developing was Mesopotamian countries, Babylonia, Persia, the Assyrians up north in Syria there. And of course, down in your lower section, Egypt. And they all battled each other, and guess where they had to go through? God's playground. So the wars is interesting, and I decided to take it really from the 1900s when Jews started coming back. Actually, I have to pause. When were Jews pretty much kicked out of the land for a long time? Can you replace the time?
70 CE by the Romans?
70 CE by the Romans, Common Era. Some sort of hung around in different areas till probably about 135 when there was another great revolt, and then pretty much truly scattered. And the idea is the Jews went into the diaspora, into exile yet again. They finally start coming back around the late 1880s and then into the 1900s, but very small. But they're settling there. There are some Jews that would say the family's been there since the 1500s, 1400s. A lot of them started when we got kicked out of Spain in the Spanish Inquisition and the expulsion of the Jews from Spain, and then Portugal. Some started making their way. But really, things started getting rough around the 1900, 1947. A lot of attacks. There were famous Jewish units in World War I and World War II, but minorities. Big thing is 1947 and 9 with the birth of the modern state of Israel in 1948. We should have lost because it was basically 5 nations against 1. I think Israel has someone on their side, and they survive. By the way, one of the first sites when you start driving up to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv is called Route 1. As you're going up, to this day, there are still burnt out military vehicles on the sides of the road as a remembrance for what it cost. And they were from 1948 and trying to break the stalemate into Jerusalem. A lot of people tend to forget there was actually a Sinai War in Suez Canal in 1956. France and England were on Israel's side, and they were about to carry it. And then the Russians and a little bit of the Americans say, hey, you got to stop what's going on. And so there was actually this, it was really like a Cold War with a lot of incursions, but this was a conflict. Of course, everything changed in the Six-Day War. People remember the Six-Day War? I mean, that was, in a way, that became the true fulfillment of what Israel is, because it captured all of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is finally united again. It captures the Sinai, captures Gaza, and all of the West Bank area. That 67 was this miraculous part. Six-Day War should have been wiped out. A lot of American Jews, because of that, started moving to Israel, because they saw this is it. This is our land fully again. Bit of sort of this war of attrition, shots fired back and forth. Again, everything changed in 73 with the Yom Kippur War. People remember the Yom Kippur War? It was frightening. I remember in synagogue what it meant. I was young at the time. But hearing about it, and you people going back, Israel should have been wiped out, point blank. Should have been wiped out then. There is a battle, it's called the Valley of Tears in the Golan area, where massive amounts of Syrian tanks started coming, and there was a few units of tank units trying to hold them off. And at night, it was so bad, the description was, you couldn't tell if it was an enemy on your right side or one of your own. And there was a famous call that one of the generals said, turn off your lights. Because people, the Syrians, whatever, would drive with their headlights on. Of course, everyone's trying to say, turn them off. And then one tanker realized, he looked over, and there was a Syrian tank literally 20 feet away from him. Swung the turret around and fired point blank range. And it's because of their heroism on that mountain, that called the Valley of Tears, that saved all of the north, because the Syrians would have just kept going. The other part about the Yom Kippur War was the failure. How did we not realize it? There was an interesting failure on the Arab country for attacking. They chose Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the most holiest day of the year. Now, if they attacked on Rosh Hashanah, where are a lot of Israelis who are not religious, we'll talk about the differences, they would go to the beach on Yom Kippur. It was a day off. You go to the beach. The religious people will go to synagogue all day. But everyone went to the beach. The roads would be crowded. On Yom Kippur, all the streets were empty. What saved part of Israel when the attack happened, although a lot of people were home, meant that all the soldiers can get on the roads into their units quickly. If it was Rosh Hashanah, we could have lost the war too because of that. And then later on, with all the conflicts, the Lebanon War took place. The Intifada, where you have this uprising internally, right down to various wars between Israel and Hamas, sort of this one faction of the Palestinians that is radical, extremist, point-blank terrorists, and murderers. And toward the end, I'll talk about October 7th, which became the next huge sort of, people have called it almost like a Holocaust, again, internally, with what happened. What I like about this is you could sort of see how Israel shaped from the British all the way through the different modern days up to the land where we are now. I'll make a statement. When we gave back the Sinai to the Egyptians, I wish they just negotiated Gaza too and said, you deal with them. And there, thoughts to say Egypt was smart. They weren't going to take over Gaza. So there's a bit of the military. You can't talk about Israel if you don't talk about the various parties. So here, I'll be a little on the edge. I would say things are very interesting in the United States between the two parties, political parties. Would you say that's a fair, neutral statement? Yes. Okay. Imagine if you had like 15 parties going at it. Welcome to Israeli Politics 101. It is crazy. And they've changed. Likud, which is the party of Benjamin Netanyahu, when I told you, Israel changes, the prime minister was meeting with the president of the United States today. I haven't heard like how it went or stuff like that, but that shows you how much things can change. But Likud tends to be the conservative, by and large secular. You see they have nationalists, right wing, Likud. And these are now what are sort of the bigger parties. And I'll get to one thing that's interesting. Yesh Atid, centrist, liberal, secular. National Unity, center-right, security-focused. Security over economics or anything else. Shas and United Torah Judaism. Because you have different parties, you're going to have, I want to bring my agenda. The ultra-Orthodox, the very religious in Israel said, who will acknowledge being in Israel because they want to be in power. They're probably not going to send their kids to military service. I'll share a little bit of what's going on there in a second. But this United Torah Fund, we're a couple individual, then united, because if you unite, you can put more votes together. Here's the way to think of the two parties. United Torah Party, ultra-Orthodox, European descent. That's what Ashkenazi means. I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. My relatives came from Central to Eastern Europe and in Russia. If you come from Morocco or Tunisia or Egypt, parts of Syria, you are a Sephardic Jew. And so they, of course, have to have their own party. Well, they had to have their own party because first it was all the ultra-Orthodox European, and so they realized we got to form our own party so we could have a vote. And they have a large percentage, which meant they got a lot more votes. If you have votes, you go on. I'm going to take you through then what happens here. Religious Zionism tends to be very far right. They want all the land and religious stuff. The Labor used to be always the ruling party, the party of Ben-Gurion, the party of Yitzhak Rabin, the party of Golda Meir. Those were all laborists, secular. They used to be the most powerful party until they weren't. And then you have these smaller parties to go with it, including Israeli Arabs. Arabs are living in Nazareth or other parts that are very dominant are Akko. Arab, they're Israeli. They have an Israeli ID card. And they have their party. And the question is, do you align with them or not? So how do you make it? Because it's a parliamentary, so you need more than, I think, 60 or 63 seats. I can't remember the exact number. So you're only going to get, if everyone's voting for your party, you're only going to get a certain percentage. So what do you need to do? Form a coalition. Which means, my words, how much are you going to sell your soul and your principles to align with this party to get into power? That's literally what it is. How much am I going to sell my soul? Or give up my values? So Netanyahu, they're looking, probably will have a very slim majority. He's got to make a deal with someone. And when you make a deal, what you say is, hey, we'll vote together. Now I got to give you different portfolios to oversee. It's like different cabinet positions. So imagine one of the parties, the Republican Party now, this is the thing, in order to keep it, they have to give certain cabinet positions to people so they're happy. Not your friend who's in the same party, but someone you probably disagree with. So, do I make a deal with all the ultra-religious? What are they going to want? They're going to want the education. Why? Because then they can take all the money that comes in for education and make sure it goes into their ultra-Orthodox schools. Or for other services. Or, hey, ultra-Orthodox, and this is right now where the parties are struggling. If I take the ultra-Orthodox, then how much am I willing to say that yeshiva students who will spend their whole time studying and not serve in the military, I'm going to exempt them from the military. It's a huge, huge, huge battle in Israel right now. Because most of the people that serve in the military are secular or modern Orthodox because they believe in service. But a whole crew is like, we're saving Israel because we're going to study the Torah all day. You could tell, I'll be honest, I have a big bias there. I'll say it right off. But the challenge here is, am I going to make a deal with them? I just heard a podcast that talked about, am I going to align myself with them, or am I going to align myself with the Arab parties, who probably would be much better, but am I going to do it that way? So you can tell on a religious level and on a political level, this party makes a difference. Many years ago when I was in Israel, there was a famous, the better part about Israel is it's a much shorter campaign style. Unlike here, it seems to go on forever, okay? I don't care what party you would affiliate. It goes on forever, months, as soon as the midterms are done, it's going to go into big presidential. In Israel, it's a much shorter time, and 1 week you run all your ads. And people stay up and watch the ads. Some are very creative, some are boring. Everyone, you buy time, but it's 1 week from a certain hours, and people will stay home and watch the commercials for the parties. So there's one, it's still very famous. I'm going to first say I'm not a fan of Netanyahu. I never was. I joke that if you know the game Survivor on TV, if he was on, he would win every episode. Incredible Survivor. So again, I'm all for Israel. I'm being honest, I'm not a fan of Netanyahu. But they see him, a lot of Israelis will say, I can't stand him, but he's tough on security. So the commercial was this young Tel Aviv couple found out their babysitter canceled. What are we going to do? Who are we going to call at this late hour? We have these plans. I'm going to know. And then there's a doorbell ring. Ding dong. Open the door, and it's Netanyahu. Bibi Netanyahu. Rosh HaMemshalah, Prime Minister, what are you doing here? I'm your babysitter. I'm for taking, your child will be safe with me because of my security positions, et cetera, et cetera. That's what 1 week. Imagine in this country, we would give the parties 1 full week from 7 to 9 or 10 o'clock, tune in then, and the rest of the time you could just watch your regular shows. Wouldn't that be amazing? All right. All right. What does Israel look like? And this is incredible. It is made up of Jews from around the world. It is made up from Arabs, Christians, Baha'i. Actually, Baha'i was, I don't know enough about it, comes out of India area and Persia that were persecuted, and their major temple is in Haifa. It's actually gorgeous to look down, beautiful gardens. But it's made of all these people, and the amazing thing is, officially, every single Jewish Israeli, some Arabs are doing it, Druzi, which is a form of Arab, of Islam, but a sort of a breakaway. They serve in, Bedouins serve. Back when the Vietnam boat people were coming, Israel took a whole bunch of boat people, Vietnamese boat children in. They're serving in the military. And so in the military, it reflects from religious to totally secular. Because everyone serves, you could have a tank unit where the driver is a banker during his regular time. The gunner is an investment personnel. The loader could be a dentist. And the commander of that tank owns a falafel stand. All interesting. And by and large, there's no saluting, and people internally will call their commander by their first names, their officers. It's that part. Everyone serves, men for 3 years, 2 years for women. You might say, what if you're a religious Orthodox Jew, but you believe in serving the country? They have a national service, sort of like a Peace Corps or AmeriCorps, where you go in and you'll educate the religious so they don't have to be in uniform, but they will go out and serve. There's a unit in Israel of religious Jews who believe very strongly in serving the country, but also studying in yeshiva. So they don't agree with the people, you got to be there the whole time. Their service are 5 years. It's called Chesder Yeshivot students. They'll study for a year. They'll do a year and a half of military service. They go back to the yeshiva to study, and then they go back in 5 years. And they started off in these weaker units, and they say, we want to show, they've been shown to be some of the fiercest, best fighters, and now their ranks are throughout, from paratroopers to, advanced infantry. Really incredible. Yes, you have the Orthodox world. And I'll explain a little bit of religion in a second. And Israelis are all different in what the young people are, with their goals and their aspirations. This was monumental, I believe, that came out of the first administration of the Trump administration, the Abraham Accords, to bring together that there's peace with these countries. Saudi Arabia is still, I think they really want to become part of it, but it's all political. But I hope they will. But this has actually changed economically for both countries. It helped both countries. In a way, they realized, I believe the Arab countries, really the enemy of my enemy is my friend. They started realizing, why are we going after Israel? Our real enemy is Iran, is ISIS. Israel will take on anyone. We're better off aligning ourselves economically and even militarily, and just peace with them. It's an incredible moment. So let me say a couple things on religion. I'm a conservative rabbi, so I'm like very mainline in this country. I'm not recognized by the Israeli rabbinate, the rabbis in Israel. I'm not recognized. We have a conservative movement there. It's called Masorti, but it's a minority. A lot of Israelis aren't familiar with that, or they'll look down on the reform movement that's there. They're minorities. Israel people basically see either you're religious or you're secular. Most of the country is secular. There's a huge growing Orthodox population, because in the ultra-Orthodox, they follow the commandment of be fruitful and multiply. So they will have 10, 11, 12, 13 kids. I would hear these stories in the hospital, the OBGY wing. There would be a daughter giving birth to her first child. And in the bed next to her is her mother giving birth to the 12th child. Not kidding. And so those are the challenges that are going there. Now, I love going to Israel too, because I never have to worry about what's kosher. But you can see what it means. Let me jump and say a word about a horrific moment, one of the most painful moments, truly, that is October 7th. This absolute horrific terror attack to kill as many Jews as possible and capture as many that we could bring back, including dead bodies. So first and foremost, thank the Lord that all the hostages are home, living and those who are dead, that they're finally home. I've had the pleasure of meeting a number of these the family members throughout the over 2.5 years. A friend from high school, his son was taken, luckily safely, thank God, returned. I've had cousins and friends who are on kibbutzim surrounding Gaza that miraculously survived. One of them was someone, I was a friend with her and her husband. They consciously decided to have their family and live on this kibbutz. It was a nice community to be around. Let me stop. Anybody understand what a kibbutz is? Kibbutz, it's an agricultural farm. It goes back to the days of really socialism and the idea of commune. Like, we all work together. You could be an academic and you could be, no education, and we all make the exact same thing. And they used to experiment, like, the teenage houses in high schools. Boys and girls would live together in the same thing. It was all that, 60s business and earlier. But they were originally all agricultural. A lot of them then started getting into industry or high tech because it was a way to support themselves and grow. But most of them were secular. There were religious kibbutzim. I had cousins that live on religious kibbutzim. This friend decided to move to this community to live. He was a reporter for the Times of Israel. She worked for the government as a liaison person, and they had 2 beautiful young children. And when October 7th hit, they hid, they heard what was going on, the gunfire right outside their windows. Didn't seem, there was some fight back. He called his father, very briefly, and didn't have a lot of cell phone coverage, but he got a hold of his father, who was a retired Israeli general, brigadier general. And Timur was the name, General Timur. Explained, the father grabbed his revolver, rushed out, grabbed a couple of friends. His wife went with him. They started driving down from like the Tel Aviv area to the kibbutz area. All mayhem going on. And she stopped at a checkpoint to help try to save people. I think she was a nurse or had experience. He kept going, met up with the unit, explained who he was to like some, let's say, captain in the military. Hi, I'm retired general. You still have command. Tell me what you need from me. Got outside where his family's house was when enough to go, yelled into it, and the daughter yelled, Abba, Dad, it's Saba, it's Grandpa. And he saved his family. There's a book called The Gates of Gaza, or Gaza, by Timur. I'll get the name afterwards, it's worth reading. So to explain that. I have another cousin who survived on her kibbutz. It has changed Israel, changed this country. The hard part is, how do you deal with the anti-Semitism that came out of it? So here it is, horrifically attacked. And everything seemed to turn that in this country you had what was going on in Columbia University, universities, young people yelling who had no idea, from the river to the sea. And when you would ask that young person who is not Palestinian, what does this mean? Oh, I don't know. What river, what sea? You know what they would say? I'm not sure. Well, what does that mean? Oh, just the river to the sea. Well, it meant the Jordan River, one boundary of Israel, to the sea, the Mediterranean, that no Jews should live there, that Israel should cease to exist. That's what that statement meant. And these young people had no idea what that was. They just were so universal in their thinking that they didn't understand what Israel came. And I will say this, although it's hard, the Palestinian forces that pushed all these radicals to push these uprisings on campuses and protests, they were very smart in their PR and their social media. That's why I think a lot of people, that's all they read. Oh, the poor suffering Palestinian. I will say, could you have used a 200-pound bomb instead of a 500-pound bomb? Maybe, but without a question, and it happened and it was forgotten, many times when Israel would strike, you would have, where was the rocket that was being fired? From the parking lot of the hospital, from the nursery school yard. The mentality, again, I'll take this as my own words, for the Hamas terrorist, We don't care how many of our Palestinians get killed as long as we kill an Israeli. They didn't care. That news didn't get out, and when it was debunked. So, thank God it is over. I really hope for peace. I believe that in the West Bank areas, in Judah and Shomron, that most of the Arabs really just want to live in peace. They just, should they have their own self-rule? I tend to think they should have much more, but it's a hard point. I'll bring back to another thing that's been facing Israelis. One of my dear friends, I knew him from rabbinical school, Israeli. He was born in the United States, but and so he's a little bit of a Patriots fan. He's a big Eagles fan, so I guess we were both disappointed. But I knew him when he was in the military. I remember when he graduated from officer school. I'll show you the contrast. He was in Lebanon, commanding troops. At my bachelor party, he was there, and we were at a comedy show. It was pretty mild, a bunch of rabbis going to a comedy show. And the comedian turned out he was Lebanese. And he said, anybody here ever been to Lebanon, the city? And my friend goes, yep, been there. And the guy went all white. But he said, maybe I had to make one notification because of an accident at one of my soldiers. His kids are in their 20s, a couple are married, some were in tank units and everything. His kids, one, were seeing combat like he never saw. Two, they were going to funerals, not just one or two, but dozens of friends and people they know that he, who's my age in the late 50s, early 60s, that he never experienced. And they were going to friends' funerals right and left, or losing people from their units. He showed me a picture and said, that person were all killed. That's what the Israeli society, the young people, are struggling with, and how we come out of it. I can't end on a sort of a sad part to go into Q&A, but I'll put on the positive part. It is still the most amazing country to visit, and it is beautiful. It is full of history. I'm tied to history and love it, and I really think that as I walk this ground, and it goes back to my first trip to Israel in the old city, walking down, I saw a bunch of ultra-Orthodox Jews pass me. I saw an Armenian nun, big black outfit, walk by me, a shepherd moving his sheep, and then a Ferrari drove down the street. I mean, it's that type of world. It is, technologically, has given us so much. The leaders. And I'll say very proudly from my work when we were both at the Guard, the relationship between Israel and the U.S. military is one of the strongest bonds ever. I asked a senior person, why this relationship with Israel and research and development? And I said, is there any other country we have that relationship with in building and technology? And the answer was basically no. Not England, not France, not Germany, but it's Israel. Because in a way, they know Israel is not bound by all the things that we have to do in paperwork. And the United States has got all the ability to then actually put into action in the lands to test everything. And this incredible thing of Iron Dome, David's Sling, a lot of these defense things, it's joint development because it benefits both Israel and the United States, one of the closest relationships. I would say from both of us in our time, we were both privileged to be in a building where there was an Israeli attaché officer that worked together with National Guard units. And I thought, how incredible is that? And culturally, it's amazing. Food, some of the best in the world. You know that thing, you ever have shashuka? If you've eaten that, the egg and the spicy tomato sauce, it's really good, comes out of Israel. It's like street food. And now it's delicious. Music, intellect, it is this holy land. And it's a land that both of us share. that's a part of us. I hope that you will have a chance to see it. Not see it, experience it. To walk it like our common forefather did, Abraham, from north to south, east to west. Your questions.
Yeah, Larry, thank you so much. And I want to thank the Men's Fellowship for sponsoring Larry. He was also sponsored by the Israeli Tourist Bureau, apparently, towards the very end. We have time for a couple questions. Byron?
I've heard since I was a youngster that in Israel, the Arabs and the Jews were from Ishmael and Isaac. And that was the way they've ended up, and they never are going to be happy again.
I have a good, so yes, so Islam will come out of Ishmael. So this idea of belief in one God. So that's true, God. But here's why I always think that we share more and my hope for peace. And for me, it's straight biblically. When Abraham died, he was buried by Isaac and Ishmael. Go into the text line, I can't remember the verse. But both of them came together to bury their father. When Isaac died, remember his two children? Jacob and Esau. When Isaac died, Jacob and Esau also came together to bury their father. It's what it means for us to lead people. It's that hope. So I'm going to answer it back and saying, I have a hope that we really can be true brothers in peace. What else?
Question, Colonel. I've read that the ultra-Orthodox are approaching 20% of the Israeli population, and it's soon going to be 30%.
Yep.
When does for the most part, their refusal to be in the IDF become a even more serious problem?
So I'm going to say it's absolute. So first on the birth rate, secular Israeli Jews, it's like America. Was it 1.8 children? 2 at best. Ultra-Orthodox, as you heard, as many as possible. I think the problem is right now. How will it change? If there's an existential crisis, God forbid, that there's an attack or a war or something, when the bullet doesn't matter if it's hitting an Orthodox Jew, ultra-Orthodox, or a secular. And that I hope that will never be that time. I absolutely believe, here's one problem. I believe they should serve. One of the problems is you don't always really want them to serve because they're not in shape. A lot of them are not, they're smart text-wise, but they're not literate in the sense of how to do things. There are some that are going in slowly, and those who do, sometimes they're ostracized by the rest of their family or communities because it's the statement. I wish I had an answer. Politically, that could determine how the next election goes. Great question.
Larry, one more question. And if you would, just repeat the question just for the,
okay.
For the people.
So that was what the ultra-Orthodox being in, they're increasing in their numbers and then serving in the military with that many. It will be a huge factor probably today.
Our last question.
A daughter of mine called about a year ago and said, Dad, we've been talking together with friends, and some of them are saying they think Israel, the Jewish people, have a divine right to occupy this land forever and ever. Going back to the promise of Abraham, I'm going to give you a land. Any feelings about that?
Yes, I think it's our eternal land. I do. I think we have to share it. And part of that is the reality of today. So yes, I hold on to the biblical promise. We have every right to be there from Abraham. And I would probably, if you push me enough, I'll say even more than, quote unquote, the Palestinians. But the Palestinians have been living there for a few hundred years, 150, however. So the political reality is that we have to really figure out something how we can live together in peace. That's my hope. But as far as just always having a tie to land that we have it, absolutely. And it came much stronger from every single time I stepped foot in the country.
Larry, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, his encore presentation is tomorrow at 10:15 here in Disser Hall. And it's Ask the Rabbi, and you also tell us what Jews believe about Jesus.
So you could ask me anything, just about anything, but anything. And so think about, okay, why don't Jews? I'll give you a couple stuff so someone can be brave enough to ask the question. What is the Messiah in Judaism? What is about life after death, resurrection, the Messiah? How do Jews view Jesus? The Trinity, you name it. Any of those questions, where is hell? I'll have an answer for you. Okay. The devil, what are Jewish customs? Hey, I saw this in Fiddler on the Roof. What's that about? Seriously. Again, I'm going to come back. The only bad question is the question you don't ask me.
And the big question is, was the Last Supper one check or 13 separate checks? We'll find that out later on. So anyways, let me close in prayer.
Please.
Okay. Gracious God, I give thanks for an enduring friendship that reaches back to 1989, but also for the enriching ministry that Larry has given to his congregations, as well as to the ministry, to the military, and as well as to the ministry provided today to open our eyes to see the land of Israel in a different way. Continue blessing him in his work and his ministry, and as he presents to us, for your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, brother.